recording. So there you go. We are live. Thank you everyone for joining us in this summer session. As always, I'm here, Fernando Castro, to help you moderate alongside Yusha. And our faculty today will be Lucas since Mansi West. He cannot meet with us today. So normally the way it goes is that I explain the house rules. So for those who are new, hello, welcome. In case that you're nervous of your participation, don't be. It is mostly informal conversation, us trying to understand the topics. Thank you, Yusha. So first, I need you to make sure that you have access to the chat because we make heavy use of the chat. Uh, we use it to know who's going to be speaking first or last. As Yusha did the example, we normally write an exclamation mark. That way we know for sure who is speaking first or second. If you raise your hand, either virtually or on the camera, I can see you, but it won't be enough because, again, it will be hard to know who did first and second. So just try to use the chat. If you have problem with your mic or you're a little bit shy, you can still just type something and I will read it for you so it is in the recordings for our YouTube videos. Uh, but you don't have to actually speak if you don't feel comfortable speaking. But I always suggest that you speak because it's more entertaining and sometimes it comes a lot of good stuff out of there. Check us on social media. We basically have everything except like TikTok and stuff like that. But we do have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have again a website and YouTube and Twitter. We have all of that. We keep updated. If you want to know a little bit more about us or like a special event or something, just let me know and I will add your email to the mailing list so you receive all those juicy information directly to you. I don't think I'm missing something. If either you Shad thinks I'm missing something, you can say something. If not, I don't know if you have any announcement, Professor Ulrich, related to philosophy department or something related to Dallas College.
No, no, Jeff didn't give me anything to say, so I don't really have anything to add to that.
Okay, so I guess we just dive into the topic then. So cool. You write something? Yes, sons of perceptions a self-contained system. Uh, I think the topic, at least how it shows there, is more technical than it could be. But this is the way I interpreted it. Like we as our cultures hasn't created us some ways to understand the communities that we're living in. And sometimes a specific situation may be perceived differently, even though the substance itself is not different, but the views are different, and we're subjected by how we have been educated before. So like that sometimes can affect how willing we are to accept other people's ideas. Sometimes we're not willing at all. And all of that adds to the whole social perception of how you read whether an action is lawful or fair or so on. And between all those ramifications, we have what it is the self-contained systems, which is like either you have minority groups in there, which is conform to a different type of society between a society, or inside a society, or you have these other kind of innuendos where um, it is a system that is working inside a system. That's how I understand it. Uh, and I don't know if I'm mistaken in this case. I actually cannot see anybody right now. The image is like frozen, which is sad. Um, but if you can do a better introduction, Professor Ulrich, you can just say it, which is fine.
Yeah, the topic it kind of emerged organically uh, out of the last discussions of the last few weeks, and I was thinking about how in the world do we want to bring this up. For me, you always start small, and the smallest unit I can think of is just and it needs to not just to be another person, it needs to be somebody that you have kind of an in-depth relationship with. So if you think about if you've had a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you almost have a little secret language to yourself, and you have stories that only you two know, and inside jokes, and you build you build up this little community, which is just you two. And the question is what would be destructive to that community? What would destroy that bond then, which those two people have together, which they have over time built up? And it seems as if it would be some type of outside force which comes in and destroys the bonds between those people. And if we take that idea and then we build it up into a larger way of looking at it and start to think, well, this is exactly how cultures are. Inside jokes, their own stories, their own ways of viewing the world. And when you have these self-enclosed systems, we'll just think of them as cultures right now, and they have their own ideas, their own way of going about the world. How do we get them to talk to each other in a significant way? Or is it better that they stay isolated? Is the better world a world where you just have isolated systems out there where everybody is doing their own thing? Or is a better world where we have one big system where they all interact inside? Because once you have a big system, it seems to kind of destroy some of the integral parts of each culture. Just as if you add a third person to a relationship, you're going to lose something there. So that's kind of what I wanted to start it with.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That the comment that the more you add, the bigger it is. Like the more it can be lost. And I think it is very reflective of how the society is working right now. We were with that before the internet and became what it is today. Our communities were very localized. Like people had more of a sense of pertinence, not just the country, but even the town that they live, the city. It was more theirs, and they would try to make as much as they can about their identity on that regard. But now the internet is so big, like we all have a little bit of everyone, so we kind of like miss what it was before, very key to our own um, living experience, which is creating a dissonance between like all the new people, like bigger than it could have been before. I think like before, of course, I'm not that old, but I think like before, like there was this sense of you belong to this community, you learn what you're supposed to learn from this community, and it was a little bit more accepted. Now it's more like you're old, that all these different views,
Yeah.
you are missing out. So it's kind of like who is right. This person who is defending the traditions that he was taught, or this new person who is taking ideas from other cultures that maybe, I mean, sometimes it can be beneficial for you, but some other times maybe actually not that good for you. Because, I mean, let's say that there are some cultures that came from the weather. So they all like, they like the style of maybe like long shirts or very like, comfy because it's very cold, but you live in a desert. Can you truly dress like that? You know,
Yeah.
I'm putting a very like easy example, but I think sometimes happens that way. People who wants to live in their certain like economic status when they're still not there, trying to have like the new phone or the new shirt or the new purse, and trying to put into all these money investing things when, I mean, the truth is that the economy maybe is not that, but they want to become part of that culture that has a lot of money. So it does play a huge role and on how people are living their lives, which is something that is relatively new, um, previously of how we live our lives. Um, yeah, it's just interesting. Um,
Do you think that when we get into what you're describing, that you can keep the strength of traditional beliefs um, to the extent to where they used to be? So, in other words, are we going to have to see a lessening of a religious point of view and a lessening of a majority point of view in any country? And I want to add on to that. There's something really interesting because for a culture which seems sometimes as sure as it does, as Western culture is, the, you'll see it do strange things. For instance, they'll find like a hunter gatherer tribe which is on an island, and They're self-contained. They've been self-contained for thousands of years. And the question is, do we go make contact? Do we go try and talk to these people? And there's a strange thing where a lot of people say no. And my question is, well, we're doing it everywhere else. I don't understand what makes this small island special. You're willing to go everywhere in the world to bring your own culture and your own ideals to other places, and you think that they're good to spread everywhere. But why this one island? Why is this a special instance?
Yeah, I'm not that aware of that one, but I do remember one that they're very aggressive. That even if they see like an
Yeah,
helicopter, they start like throwing bows, like it's like damn. And I remember that one of the issues that they said is that since they're so far behind, like
technologically.
technologically speaking,
Yeah,
like our presence and our virus will be so strong to them that we actually can kill them just by the presence. Um, and I mean, it's a lot of effort, you know. We don't have much of a good experience out of conquering other like islands, you know. When the
right.
Europe came to here, like they just kind of like eradicate everything. So I guess that there is that. But I see what you're saying. Like if we can improve their lives a little bit, shouldn't we try to? But I mean, what if we are actually not improving them? What if they actually better than us?
Yeah, and that's the issue that I wanted to press is, um, if we do think that our way of life is the right way, uh, and part of us getting to the point where we're at now was interacting and in reality destroying a lot of cultures. Are we unsure about how we got to where we are? Are we unsure about it was the right way? Because it seems that it's kind of what we're still doing, a generalized, universal type culture that we want to spread out to the world.
Yeah. But I must admit this. I believe that all this generalization is not eradicating all cultures. I think it's cementing the big ones and is removing the shorter ones. The one who has the more impact, I think they're kind of like being more standing than the others. For instance, the language. Basically, everyone in the world, every country speak English, one way or another. Um, which is it is. I don't know if there is such a thing as a universal language, but if it's something close to it, it will be English. Same with different like tradition and stuff. Like I mean, I guess the United States has that impact like, all around, but I do believe that it's not just United States. Also, like there are other cultures in Asia that are having like this big time impact on other cultures. So I think like with time, if it is left unchecked, it could happen that we kind of like have less cultures and everything is a little bit more like generalized, which is a little bit I guess about my point of view right now is it would be a little bit sad because part of what I like about the world is the differences that we have, and if we start having less differences, then it's a little bit monotone. I don't know if it is a good thing long term, but I feel like it could become eventually some of those societies that we see in the movies that they all have one mind, which it will be internet in this case. You know, internet will be the base
Yeah,
of all our memories, and we all kind of like get connected with this, or one-minded. And we have one person who is like the designer, but that person is just really one of all of us. It's kind of like scary. It's like, oh man, I think it could limit improvement at some point. Because if we all think that all we're doing is right at some point, or there is not much resistance at some point, then I mean, yeah, we're gonna be very high because I guess to get to that point, we need to have like a strong technology, but it could at the end of the day limit our progress.
yeah.
Um,
What do you do? What do you do with groups like the Amish who you try to get away from the technological, but still have an isolated, to some extent, an isolated group which has kept a pretty common identity for a long period of time? Is this kind of the model that we want to have, a community inside of another community, where they really are living completely separate lives.
Yeah, I mean, I don't completely, I, of course, from the outside, I don't completely agree with some of the things they do, but I do believe that they have some pros. Um, like something that I feel they have is that they have a strong, like they're more resilient. You know, like what it takes
Yeah.
to see other people having all these commodities and just they're like, no, I need to, they're, I mean, they work more on themselves, it seems. Whether if it is good or not, that's not the point of this discussion right now. But I feel like we're missing something of that. So I do believe that we need some societies between the societies. Um, uh,
See,
uh,
at that,
yes.
sorry, at that point, with the Amish and such societies, we are treading over the fine line that is present between religion and culture, right? And to some extent, we agreed in the during the previous meeting that one way or the other, the culture and religion, you have to take them both at the same time. It's not like you can pick, oh, I'll take religion but not the culture, or culture not the religion, because it's simply not gonna happen. The two things are so tightly woven together that it becomes very difficult to pick out one versus the other. And in terms of having a well integrated society, as we call it, it's more of it has to do with the advancement aspect of it, not necessarily any like super futuristic advancements or anything like that, but to some extent, like here in the US, where okay, so you know how there's a saying about New York, if you spend enough time in New York City, you will eventually meet a person from every country on the planet. That's the beauty of it. Like you just staying in one place and having interactions with all these different people, like just us in this meeting room, so many people from so many different places, yet we're here to discuss one thing. And I think that would be the brighter side of things, that hey, we're getting to learn from each other. Like, oh, I've never been to Venezuela, but I know that people do this, they don't like this, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. But in the retrospective things, it could also bring some some differences, like I don't know, maybe some differences that are present at the heart of two contradictory cultures, uh, like Orthodox religion supporters, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, whatever. With them, they believe that okay, certain genders have certain roles in society, right?
Right.
But when you bring it to the actual society and the culture in modern times, it's just not feasible, because a female parent cannot stay home at all times taking care of the baby. Why? Because the expenses have risen. So both parents have to work by hook or by crook. The male member of the society, he can't work 24/7 because he's not a workhorse. There's biological needs, there's fatigue, there's stress, there's so many other factors. So when you bring in the understanding of one culture and trying to implement it on another, that is where a lot of the clashes and the differences and the headbutting takes place.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. Uh, when you do bring one culture into, yeah, there's going to be a severing of some of the ideals of the culture, which is why I like the Amish ideal of trying to keep their own ideals. And you really do have to isolate yourself to be able to do that. There's no way to fully integrate yourself and to do that, because once you fully integrate yourself, you're going to take on new ideals, and some of the traditional ideas of your culture are going to have to change. So in the end, I'm not sure how to get out of that predicament.
Well, we could explore the the fact that instead of teaching just one aspect of things, like I studied 2 years of high school in 1 year because my credits didn't transfer from when I came in from overseas, right? So over there, the credits that I did not have was local history, even though back home I had studied world history for all 4 years of my high school. But here they said, "Oh, the world. We don't care about the world. All we want is the U.S. U.S. history, U.S. government. On top of that, you have to take 4 more classes: Texas history, Texas government, and blah blah blah." So that is one thing that we definitely need to address if we want to proceed with calling ourselves a truly united land of different cultures, different aspects, and whatnot. So that could be one thing we start.
Yes, I think that you're right to point to this idea that we're going to have to find things if we do decide that we want to come together. That yeah, that we're going to have to find ways to make that work. So I'll go ahead and talk about the next move I wanted to make in this discussion, and that is if we do look at all of these cultures and all of these different ways of living life, can we find some ways of living life that are better than other ways of living life? Some cultures that are better than other cultures.
Finally. I
He's
have
back. He's back.
yeah, it's back like the Terminator. No, no, for a moment I like it was there, but I couldn't hear anything. Well, it's fine. Okay, so we have somebody in the queue, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead. I cannot see anything, but I saw the message.
Orlando, go ahead.
Okay, so you see, yeah.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's been a while since the last time, I think. But my question would be to your question, I guess, is how do we quantify a better way of living? You know, I think that's a really like the root of the question here is like how, what are we measuring it? Like a amount of happiness? Are we talking usefulness? Like what exactly makes a society's way of living better than another's? Ultimately, it seems like the whole issue here is that it's so subjective. Some might like to have this conformity aspect, or some might like to have this individuality. So how do we pick and choose from that? And if we start to pick and choose, does it have to become sort of like a dictatorship, or does it have to become sort of just completely mandated for people to live this certain way of lifestyle that we have chosen? Like, is that the kind of society that can harbor this?
No, but I think to some degree we're already in it. Even before.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're living here, like you have to live the American way. You cannot really be completely yourself because then, you're not conforming to their idea of living or I mean, that's why sometimes they even ban people for coming to specific countries because they don't want to be seen with those type of people or those type of culture. So I think we are already applying some sort of tyrannical ways of how our communities should be built. Um, and that's why I think the whole like wall restrictions exist. Um, and I believe they do it because they believe that they are happier. Which again, to this part, I guess we can go to like what makes them think that way because United States have this idea that their way of living is better than most other countries. But if you go outside, we really don't see it that way. Like we don't see American having a better life than us. We just know that there are opportunities that you can have in America that we cannot have outside. But we are aware that we will be happier if we are not inside America, which is a weird idea. It's like you come to this country sacrificing happiness among long-term sustainability and opportunities. I guess that's the thing. But we don't necessarily think that we will have a better life here. I mean, some other countries, of course, they do. If they're like, being persecuted and like justice and gotcha, then yeah, they will definitely have a better life. But that's beyond the case right now. Um,
Hey, Ferdinando, oh, sorry to kind of
no,
butt in
it's
here.
okay. Go
But
ahead.
and like you're what you said there like kind of reminded me of sort of like the psychology course, and I don't know if you remember specifically, but it was whenever they were trying to measure happiness.
Mhm.
It reminds me of that study basically kind of where they went around and were looking for different people and were saying, okay, how many fulfilling moments did you have in your life, and like how can you recall them, and so on and so forth. And so I think that could be a sort of a way to quantify it. But the interesting find in that study was that it wasn't really a specific way of life that was causing people to feel happy. It was more like you can only have a standard of like you need social relationships, you need kind of a good background either with your family or with close friends. So like this is the common basis for it, but we don't actually know the recipe. And so that's
Yeah.
what I thought was kind of interesting. So that's why like when we talk about things like okay, who's happier than who, it's always so difficult for me to talk about, you know. Yeah.
No, of course. And before I go to Urge, like I agree, it's hard for us because right now I'm not saying that United States doesn't have a better way of living. I'm not saying that Americans are, but I don't like to use Americans because America is a whole continent. But to the point is, that they may feel way happier being here than going outside. You know, so but yeah, I agree with you. Like it's hard to quantify who's gonna be happier because it doesn't seem to be subjected by a geographical position necessarily, but more of how the person, individually speaking, is open to feel happy. Sometimes I feel like people don't think deserving of being happy, so they themselves make themselves feel bad, which is a different topic. But yeah, I'm gonna close like that, and I'm gonna let Ulrich take the floor.
Well, no, it's Fernando. You said exactly what you were getting towards the place that I wanted to get, and you bifurcated it perfectly. Okay, so you said, well, there's this idea of happiness, and I might be happier not here, but at the same time, kind of the basis of the U.S. is this individualism, stability, the ability to be economically okay, and that perfectly cuts across the issue because on the one hand, my guess is when you're talking about happy, you're talking about going back and being integrated into something that has deep meaning, family, ties to people that have similar culture and ideals than you. And there is, I'm guessing, by what you're saying, there is the feeling that when you come here, there is stability, but you do have to sever the ties to some extent. And my question is, you know, um, is this a good severing? Is this a good choice to make in life?
Yeah,
So yeah, that's my question.
yeah. I mean, it is funny because sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Like sometimes you like. I remember that we have this common joke in my country that when people are inside Venezuela, things could be disastrous, but we're actually acting as if we're happy. So like we go like, "Hey, how you doing? Oh man, I'm so good. I just got mugged like two blocks away, but hey, you know, I have life. I still have, you know, all my fingers or whatever." So it's like, "Oh, like, can you go there? No, I have no money, but you know what? Life is gracious. Like we're so happy." But when
Yeah,
we go outside, it's like we have all like say, safety or money, we act less happy. We're like, "Yeah, you know, well, it's good. Life is going." Like we're more a little bit like, I guess, emotionally stable. So it's kind
yeah,
of like it is funny that we sound with our voice less happy, but we actually have more than we were actually having before. But we were more gracious of the little things we had in our country after we move away. So I think it does come with that severing. Like you sever part of what of who you were. So when you come over here, you're a little like it doesn't matter. Like I mean, yes, you can come to a point that you're actually very happy, but to some degree, part of you is not here. So like you may be happy to the extent of what you're having in this moment, but to some degree, you are in this perennial uh, there is a term in Brazilian, I think it's eudoma, I forgot the term, but it's kind of like you have this sense that of sorrow. It's kind of like you're missing something. So
yeah.
it doesn't, if you don't transcend that state, you always feel like you're not completely happy. because you already sever something that you need to work on, and sometimes you making a living, you don't pay attention to those tiny things that you actually have to pay attention to.
Yeah. And then also the possibility of when you go back, you're not going to be fully integrated because there are going to be people who are going to look at you differently because of what you've done, the new ideas that you have that you're coming back with. So you can never fully then go back and put your roots back into the same place.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
happened to me actually. I don't long like I remember that some people say like, hey, do you intend to go back to Venezuela? It's like, I mean, eventually, yeah, but I no longer belong to them. I no longer belong to the community. It doesn't matter what I do. If I go there, I will have to rehabilitate myself of being Venezuelan because I haven't lived very important events that they have been living. They already
Yeah.
use different words. So whenever I speak, even though they understand, yeah, we speak the same thing, I don't have the same jargon. So and even my accent is different, and I have different practices than before. So like, yeah, they say that I keep my English and my Spanish well enough, but they also say, hey, you act differently. So I don't even belong to Venezuela. So which is yeah, like I cannot even see it as home. It's not like I saw it home before, but it's now it's specifically no home. Um, so yeah,
Literally, yeah. Culturally homeless.
yeah, culturally homeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I joke around with that term because you do whenever you move away from your house, at least your country, to look for like a brighter future, or whatever. That is something that you severe. You used to belong to somewhere and you were rooted into it, and now you're not. It doesn't matter what you do. You can play the role of being one outside, but if you go back to the country, you're no longer that. That's just what it is.
Okay.
Uh,
It's this. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Yusha.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, Fernando. I think the term you're looking for is saudade.
Saudade, yeah, that's the term that I
Yes,
was looking for.
I knew it. So yes, basically, for those who don't know, it's a state of basically feeling very nostalgic, yet in a very melancholic way. It's not like a happiness. Oh, I remember my childhood. No, it's a very sad or deep emotional being of nostalgia. You'd have to experience it to be able to understand it. It's not explainable in words, but um, but yeah, I totally agree with you that after you've been away from a place or a people in for enough time, you do become culturally homeless because let's take the situation of COVID, right? We're touching what almost 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years now, without any major social interaction or anything like that. So most of us who work from home, not me, we're so accustomed to the lifestyle of doing everything from their bed, right? Whether it's homework, schoolwork, attending classes, working at XYZ, whatever you may have. They just got used to everything being done from home. And now, as the surveys are being done and people are being called back into the work field, they are experiencing emotional distress, just general stress, anxiety, and the I guess sense of being around that many people all of a sudden. Because online I can talk to a million people and that's fine, but when it comes to being there in person and having to interact with all these different groups, that might become overwhelming for some people. So we have created a culture of our own in this COVID situation, which it required. It wasn't a choice at that point, right? So if we look at the times before the advancement of internet and ease of meeting with one another online, it was it might have been the same way because see, I remember back in 1992 or 1994. It was a little while before I was born. My dad had gotten a full ride to university in Florida, right, for his computer science and engineering degree. But at that point, the cultures, at least in my parents' opinion and their family's opinion, were so different that my dad let go of that opportunity because my grandmom, she had the aspect of extreme vulgarity and nudity and such things that are present in some form in some parts of the US. Yeah, but they're also present in Europe. They're also present in my home country. They're present all around the world, right? You cannot look through the entire country with this one scope. And now I tell my dad that, hey, if you and your family hadn't done that, I could have been born a US citizen. I would not have had to travel through like three different continents. I would not have had to move around so much just to be able to come here. So we take it like a joke and lightly, but when we do dive into it, and if you want, you can look at it this way that, hey, over there back in Pakistan where my dad was, the culture over there was not to mingle. It wasn't to get along. It was just that, okay, I'm doing me and that's about it. I don't care about anyone else. But as and when we moved, so we moved to Saudi Arabia next. There, only gatherings that we really had were I wouldn't even call them friends, like not to me at least, because I moved around every 2 to 3 years. I still do. So over there, it was a completely different way of interacting with people. Gents could only interact with gents, and ladies could only interact with ladies. There wasn't anything coexisting, not even education. So then we came here to an entirely opposite culture and aspect of things where boys and girls go to the same high school, malls, blah blah blah. Everything is done together as a community, as one society. We move forward as one, especially in the US. So it did where it might hold some people back by looking at something through a very specific set of eyes or perspectives. On the other hand, they may be holding themselves back from the general advancements.
What is that? It?
No, I was good. I had another point in mind, but it just slipped because my coworker was waving at me, and I just
Okay.
kind of lost track of.
All right, I was like, oh, maybe my internet went out again. Okay, but I do have this thing because yeah, you were mentioning kind of like jokingly, like, I could have been an American citizen. But I mean, if that was the case, you would be a completely different user. So, like, then I guess the question is, uh, can you actually complain of not being born here? Because, for instance, me, no, it's okay. Like, if my parents had the opportunity that had me in the United States, I would say to some degree, thanks, Lord, for not. Because I did learn some things in my country that are the actual things that are making me be decent in this country. Um, and it does also allow me to appreciate some of the things that I get here that I couldn't have in my country. So it made me more appreciative and also more motivated. Even the whole COVID experience, I already knew what it is to be alone, like in a new environment, just like this. Poof, I had to adapt to that mentality, like just in a week. Until like 1 week was here, the other one was in a completely different country that I wasn't even wanted to be here. So when the whole COVID exploded, and everybody said, "Oh, you're so people-minded and think you should be suffering right now." Like it's not my first rodeo. I've been in this like 2 times, so I can keep myself already like on check. Um, which I don't think I would have been this ready for this kind of things if I just was born here in the United States. I know it has other benefits that I'm not having, but I'm happy with who I am right now, and that came from coming to the United States when I did. Um, so that's, I guess, the question: like, are you actually sad that you're not American? And if so, that means that you're not happy to who you are right now. Um, but I mean, that's a different type of things. I see that Orlando wants to speak, so go ahead. and then we have
Wait,
John.
wait, Orlando. Before you go, let me answer you this real quickly. I'm actually glad. Like, don't get me wrong.
No,
I'm
no, no. I know.
totally honestly happy that
No.
I'm not a U.S. citizen. Why? Because if you look at American kids, right? They're disrespectful, they're noisy, and they feel like they're entitled to everything, even though they're not. So a lot of the respect that I have for others and self-respect, a lot of the aspects of mutual understanding, patience, and a lot of stuff that kids don't have here in the U.S. comes to me from the other societies and cultures and languages and people that I've experienced it with. So I'm 100% for sure. I'm happy to be who I am.
Yeah, but this is something happy because then, and this is why I'm asking it this way. This is our social perception. So for us, we're judging other cultures or how they have the children based on their own culture. You see, so we're saying they're so rude, they're so disrespectful, they know nothing about life, and yet, like, who are we to judge them? So that's what I'm saying. This is a very interesting topic because it doesn't matter through the lenses that we're seeing it. We cannot never be truly objective, um, like analyzing these criteria. And I guess it's some weird joke or another to identify this thing. We actually need different culture with their unique things, being able to accept the fact that we need to communicate well enough to see if we can come up with a solution because just one person cannot tackle this one because it will be just through the lenses of the culture that he manages and he doesn't manage all of them. But okay, Orlando is next and then it's John.
Yeah, so I kind of want to pick up what you guys were saying, and I guess defend America a little bit because you guys bashed them.
USA. USA.
But basically, I think you guys are asking a very important question here, and it kind of makes me think like, can someone be better if born in a different country? And it's kind of like a weird question. And so what I think is kind of like in terms of basic rights in different countries and like the standard of living. Like for me, I kind of grew up in like a lower class, so I think to myself, dang, if I was born maybe in the Middle East or maybe in Venezuela, I don't think I would have had it so great. I think it would have been very difficult for me to come to the US. And I don't think, and in that sense, I think I wouldn't be a better person. So like I think to some extent I was pretty lucky to be born here because there are certain social safety nets that were given to me to essentially help me kind of come out of what I was born into. And I think in terms of these enclosed systems and seeing like how they may produce happier people is just like what it can provide for the outcasts, what it can provide for people who don't fit into these enclosed systems. Because like what are enclosed systems? It's just people who maybe were once outcast before and then they became themselves enclosed systems. And so it seems like it's just a cycle of that. It's just people who didn't fit in found other people who didn't fit in. And so, it seems like it's just kind of a cycle like that. Um, and so, in terms of just how you can relate these groups, I think we have sort of a good system in the world in terms of okay, all these different cultures are different, but at the end of the day, they're competing. They're competing and coming up with new ideas and essentially trying to progress the world in that way. So, kind of thinking past that and seeing can we become one, you know, would that even be helpful for us? I don't even know.
Yeah, I was actually playing with that idea. Like us becoming one, I think it would stop our progress. But yes, John is next. I don't want to take much of his time. He speaks not that often, but when he speaks, he brings out different views. So go ahead.
Thanks for hyping me up. I don't know if that was necessary.
That's what I do. That's what I'm supposed to do here.
So I would come at this from a different angle. Back in I went between my junior and senior year, I went on a student exchange to Mexico. When they set up the exchange, they gave me a choice of where to go, and I wanted to go to a Spanish-speaking country. And when Cozumel came up, I said, well, hell, of course I'm going to go there. When you are that age, and like I said, high school, leave it at that, and you know everything and nothing all at the same time, you don't know what you're getting into when you get on a plane and you're getting ready to go to a culture you've never experienced, and you're having to figure out, can you assimilate? How do you assimilate? How do you communicate? Because it doesn't matter how well you speak the language in your head, you find out really quickly if you've never spoken it in country, you don't speak it worth a damn. Which kind of goes to Ferdinando's point earlier, because even with the native tongue that he has, I can't imagine what it's like to go back now if you haven't spoken it with them all day, every day for that many years. Because even now, when I speak Spanish with certain people, there's things that they understand and there's things that they don't, because of the people I learned it from and the people I continue to speak it with. So when I speak with Puerto Ricans and then I go try to talk to people from Mexico, they can't understand half of what I say. But specific to what that is in those systems, to the topic, when I was down there, I kept being faced with these introspective questions of, how do I handle this? What do I do next? Is this going to be offensive? Is this not going to be offensive? And grappling with those questions when you don't even really know who you are as a person, but you're mentally 10 foot tall and bulletproof with the size ego that we have as teenagers, was an interesting reconciliation. And I'm really grateful that one of the things that they recommended that I do in all of the prep classes that I went through was that I journal every day to describe experiences and make sure to describe in as good as detailed a way as I possibly could things like flavors, smells, anything that enhanced senses. And it's amazing looking back on those things now, as long ago as that was, and being able to go right back to those feelings again. Not just some of the tastes and the textures and the feelings of the water and the looks of the water when we were diving or snorkeling or being underwater with so many fish or seeing clear water or any of those things, because those are still there too. Then again, so is all the beer and being drunk on a boat. However, one of the biggest things that comes back is just that feeling of, what do I do next? How do I say what I need to say now? And being willing to go get past I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say something until I get there, which is what I discovered was the hardest thing to get past. Being willing to look and sound like an idiot to get what I need, because if I don't do that, I'm not going to get what I need.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I've been through that many times.
We often, where I work at, we often call it "explain it to me like I'm 5" situation. So you can also find it on Reddit, Facebook, Twitter. Explain it to me like I'm 5. I'm just a dumb piece of meat. Just explain it to me, easy. So yeah, I totally agree. And who's next?
Ulrich. Yeah.
Well, we have 2 minutes left, and we touched on almost everything that I wanted to touch on, and there's really not enough time left. So I'll just mention this last thing, because it's an idea of how to sublimate all of these anxieties for culture, because something's coming up right now that attempts to do that, and that is the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like there's a competition between everybody, and so there's an equal footing. But at the same time, there is this acceptance of separation and difference. And the Olympics seems to be one of the few things I can think of which tries to, in a positive way, think about how to connect to other cultures. Because it's not just positive, it's also, I want to see if I'm better than you, because that feeling's inside all of us, right? I want to see what we know, what you don't know. I want to see what you know that we don't know. And we want to push back and forth, and we want to compete against each other. But at the same time, we want to learn against each other. And I don't see a really in-depth way of connecting, but at the same time accepting and pushing out differences and keeping our own identity, which is going on other than maybe something like the Olympics. I was wondering if anybody else had anything like that they saw, where we tried to mix cultures, but in a really profound way.
I mean,
I think that's sports in general. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that's just sports in general. Like I personally follow martial arts, and in jiu-jitsu, there's this jiu-jitsu champion who said, "Yeah, I literally will go to countries like Korea, and we don't speak the language at all, but it's like we speak the language of jiu-jitsu. It's like while we're in there, it's like we know the rhythms, we know the movements, and it's something that is just universal to us. And it's like that's just like sports and skills and all these different things that we all as people have a passion for. It's
Yeah.
like I might not speak English. I mean, speak English. Okay, I'll let you go.
No, it's
That's
okay,
fine.
but this is the thing. Like, I have been there. I have been like fighting, like, or even just playing soccer with people from other countries, and I would argue that there is a different type of community, because it's like the thing is like what unite us was not that we were from other countries going there. No, it's the passion for the sport and playing it. And the thing is like, we want to be better regardless of where you are. So yes, the whole environment is portrayed as like you came from this country, you came from this country, whatever. But actually when you're playing, we're not saying, oh, I'm from Venezuela, MF, I'm from, no, it's just like I am a better individual than you are. So it's kind of like it is I think we can think of it as itself a self-contained system, that the language is not necessarily a written one. It's the sport, it's the action, and you're just showing that you are more skillful and proficient in that language than the others. And in that way, since we're not
Yeah.
speaking language and the culture is how you manage the sport that you're practicing it, really we just talk the same language. It's just that we happen to be from different countries. That's why it makes it so easier.
One of the strange things about sport is, which is different than other art forms, is in other art forms it would be hard to know how to interact with two different art forms between cultures. But when you both say, okay, we're going to do the same thing with the same rules, it's almost you have to internalize this one game, and then you're able to come together. But then we get back to our original problem. When you have
Yeah.
this universal tendency and everybody is around it, it's going to start destroying the ties that are the traditional ties between people, and it's hard to know what to do with that.
But again, like this is, I mean, I don't know how much of you follow like a sport, but at least when it comes to soccer, every year people from different countries are just going to and changing transfer season and whatever, boom, boom, boom. They all
Yeah,
speak different languages, but
yeah,
they still know how to play with each other.
that's right.
So that's what I'm saying. Like it is a little bit different. It has these perks, but the thing is that they're always speaking what the ball is saying.
Yeah.
And as long as you know your role, you don't necessarily need to understand it to perfection. You may manage like 5 words, and you're like, hey, you're like the basic. And alongside those practices, you start like understanding a little bit more the other people language. But whenever you're speaking like football, soccer, sorry, you say soccer, but it's actually football. uh, it doesn't matter like where you're from. You would just do the same. And yes, John is saying dance is the same way, which I agree. And we have Marcus McKinley, which is different from our Marcus Russell. He just joined. He's just trying to see how things work. I hope it's fun for you. And then we have Marcus, barely caught this meeting, but we laid down some bombs as always. I can see you have to check our recording as soon. It has been bombs after bombs the whole meeting.
Yeah.
But well, yeah.
So many bombs that Yusha can't put his hand down.
Yeah. So many bombs that some of us have to I'm not gonna do that type of joke here. I'm just gonna keep it PG-13.
Jokes.
Cut the recording, and then I'll make the joke. Cut the
Yeah,
recording, and I'll make the joke.
yeah, exactly. I will stop the recording and then we do that joke. But anyways, okay, that's all good. I know we have been for an hour, so I don't know if anybody really has something more to add or say. So far it has been fun exploring this concept. So yeah, if there's nobody else who wants to say something or add something, then we can just go stir out and try to have a new topic for next week.
Oh yes.
No, but wait, we touched on the positive aspects of today's point, right? But let me bring in the negative on when cultures try to assimilate. Let's take a most recent example of sports, right? I don't know how many of you were following the Copa Europa, the European Cup,
Mm-hmm.
where English sportsmen supporters were English supporters were pointing lasers at the other team's
Keepers.
goalkeeper's eyes to prevent them from saving
Mhm.
the goal,
Yeah,
right?
but that's
So
always.
that okay, that happens, right? We say, you and I, we've been in that situation to where it happens, right? For us it's normal, but what's not normal is when these cultures actually clash in a very dramatic way, like the culture of sports. And what happened was, right after the European the who was playing? Yeah, Italy. Yeah, right
Italy.
after the Italian team had won the European Cup, the England team fans went out the stadium and started beating up people for no reason, for no apparent reason. So, give me a good reason why we should assimilate cultures, why we should bring them back together.
Yeah,
Well,
that's not easy.
yeah. I mean, in that regard, they're just being competitive. And English, they are very passionate about soccer. They have what is called the hooligans. They will fight each other on the streets if one of the cities loses against the other. So we're talking about a different type of culture, and if you're playing in their country, I mean, uh, it's even worse. But okay, yes, there are also many different aspects of that, not that positive. Whenever we're having like cultural clashes, um, that we all know. But sadly, we don't have much time to actually analyze it. So yeah, let's go into the topic. I see some of the new members are trying to see how we do this. Okay, so this is just philosophy. So we can philosophize basically about everything. So if you just want to philosophize about what is philosophy, we can do that. If you want to know the philosophy of why this paper is white, we can philosophize about that too. There is no true limitation to what we can propose, as long as we all agree that we're going to speak to it next week, if that helps you. So we do have a couple of ideas from last meeting that we can kind of like recycle. But if you have any new, if you really want to just explore something in particular, feel free to mention it, and then we just come with a vote, and whichever get the most votes is the one that we are going to be speaking next week. If that makes sense. Yes? No? Cool. All right. So I'm going to copy uh, some of the topics that we had last week, since I feel like it is possible that we're not going to have many topics today. I see somebody text, and sometimes has a delay. Art, how it allows us to come together, how it pulls us apart. Okay, that's one over there. Let me put it here in the list. Any other topic or suggestion? I'm just copying the ones that we did last week, and I'm adding the one from today. That's how I'm doing it right now. So we have actually 4 right now. All right, I'm just gonna continue. I'm gonna click send, and let's see where it goes from there. So we have 4 options in the chat. Just type the number that you would like to discuss next week, and that's how we're gonna do the vote. So number 1 is, do you need love to be happy? Then the second is it possible for 2 diametrical opposed morally philosophies to coexist? Interesting wording, but yeah, it's in the heart. And then 3, what makes for a stable democracy? And 4, art, how it allows us to come together, how it pulls us apart. And then we have Marcus saying the future of man, destined doomed to leave Earth to colonize the planets and stars, or save the Earth and everyone on it and create utopias from. Wow, already put that. Oh, wow. I mean, Marcus, you have to be a little bit faster, but that can be number 5. I'm gonna copy your thing, and it's 5. There you go. So Marcus is 5. This is number 5. Ta ta ta. 5's in there already. 5 already have 2 votes. 1 has a vote. 5. Wow. 5 is winning. Okay. Okay, I'm not completely sure if Yusha was changing his answer or not. Or it has to be just one option. It cannot be 1 and 5. It has to be either 1 or either 5. So we have 3. I mean, we still don't have majority. That's the thing. Or I think Lucas really liked the topic, so he prematurely called it a win. So biased. That's the faculty we have. You see, bias everywhere.
One of them doesn't even care to show up, and the other is biased.
Yeah, we do. That's the support we have. He knows the future. Yeah, you're right. He knows the future. He's a man who knows the future. And in the future. Cool. I was just throwing a secondary just in case. I know Marcus McKinley. Now we have to make the I know you're throwing a secondary just in case. But I'm gonna assume that since you mentioned 1 first, your vote is for 1. But I think 5 is gonna win. Let's see. John McKinley. I'm guessing he's helping me pronounce it. McKinley. Or no?
McNeely.
McNeely.
It's McNeely.
McNeely.
Yes.
So now you're all helping me pronounce this last name. I see.
That's what we do. That's our culture, to help one another.
McNeely. Yeah. So Marcus is declaring 5 wins. So I guess 5 wins. So yeah, he declared it. So that's the hidden. That's the loophole. If you declare your topic wins, you win, but nobody really use it. So yeah. Number 5 is the topic for next week. So since we agree on it and he's already declared, there's nothing more to do about it. All right, so there you go. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was fun. I liked it a lot. Again, check us on social media if you want a more direct type of conversation with us. You can send me your email and I will add you to the email list. We have a website and all these links are not only here, but they're also in the emails and our YouTube videos. So you can just check those out and you will have link to everything that we do. We have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I don't know what else we have, but we have a lot. So just keep in touch with us and we will meet in the whole summer. Take care and thank you. I'm gonna stop the recording so we can do darker jokes. Yeah. So think about it. All right.